About 4 years ago, when I was 16 years old, there was an incident after which I check every time before going to bed several times to see if the door is locked. That day, I had invited a friend over for a sleepover. I was living with my parents at the time, but they were having a sleepover with friends. So it was just the three of us at home. Me, my older brother, who was 17 at the time, and my friend. My brother hung out with us for a while and went to bed since he had to get up early in the morning. My friend and I sat in my room watching YouTube and chatting. At about 2 a.m., my friend started to feel drowsy and fell asleep very quickly. I didn't want to sleep, so I continued watching videos. Suddenly, I heard a noise outside the house. I didn't pay much attention to it, because the neighbor's cats often climb on our wagon at night, and since the wagon is lined with sheet iron, it's accompanied by a deafening, metallic clanging sound, just like the one I heard then. Then, about 5 minutes later, a barely perceptible shadow flashed past the window in front of which I have my monitor. It happened so quickly that in any other situation, I would have thought I was imagining it. But two suspicious events within a few minutes seemed odd. Immediately, I got up from my chair and went to the front door. And damn it, neither of the two locks were locked. What happened next was something that almost made me shit my pants. After locking both locks, I decided to turn on the yard light and look through the peephole. When I looked through the peephole, there was a person in front of it. Out of surprise, I shrieked, "Crap!" and jumped away from the door. Behind the door was the face of a man about 25, 30 years old, standing close to the peephole. I looked through the peephole again to get a closer look at the stranger, and then he spoke. The stranger asked me to let him in, saying he needed help. But you know what the creepiest part was? His emotions, or rather, his complete lack thereof. The stranger's words sounded very convincing. There was real fear in his voice, as if he really needed urgent help, and his life depended on it. But his face betrayed absolutely no emotion, nothing but the movement of his lips, a completely blank stare. I was unrealistically creeped out. I just stood there and stared at him. With each passing second, he begged to be let in louder and louder, with more fear in his voice. Suddenly, I heard footsteps behind me. When I turned around, I saw my brother, and I didn't even immediately notice the stranger had gone silent. My brother asked me, "What are you doing?" I replied that someone had gotten into our yard. Then I looked through the peephole again. There was no one in front of the door. What the hell? I thought at the time. I told my brother that I had just seen a man at the door, and that he had asked to be let in. He believed me, and said he saw someone at the window too, but thought he was imagining things. After that, we turned off the lights in the house and started looking through the windows, trying to find the stranger. But there was no one there. Suddenly, a wild scream from my room. My brother and I flew into the room and saw that at the window in my room stood that man with the same emotionless face, but his gaze has changed from blank to predatory. Even though there were lights on in the yard and the house was dark and he couldn't see us, he looked straight into my eyes. I was stunned out of my mind. And then he let out the first and only emotion. His face stretched in a wide smile. He raised his hand to the level of his face. In his hand, he could see a heavy knife. Slowly bringing the knife to the window, he began methodically tapping the tip of the knife on the glass while continuing to grin creepily. At that point, my brother was already on the phone with the dispatcher, calling for a police squad. I don't know why we didn't do this sooner. For some inexplicable reason, neither of us had any thoughts of calling the police before then. As soon as my brother finished talking to the dispatcher, we ran to another room. Neither of us had any desire to stay in the room with this deranged man standing outside the window. The cops arrived about 10 minutes later, but there was no one in the yard. This nutcase had fled. From our words, the police made a sketch of the stranger. The officers contacted our parents and stayed with us until they arrived. Despite the fact that APBs for this psycho were posted all over the city, he was never caught. I'm so grateful to my intuition for thinking to check if the door was locked, and to my father for his caution. There are bars on every window in our house. Who knows what would have happened if they hadn't been there?